good morning. So we're in Shelby, North Carolina, and it's the hometown of so many notable people like Don Gibson, Patty Loveless. It's also the home of the Earl Scruggs Center and the Don Gibson Theater. And I would be remiss if I did not mention that Shelby is also the home for the American Legion Baseball World Series. It's the Livermush Festival, capital of the Carolinas, and also the Cleveland County Fair. So we made a quick trip to Cleveland County, to Shelby, for a visit with North Carolina State Senator Ted Alexander. He represents the 44th District, and we're so happy to spend some time with you.
Well, thank you, Kathy, and thanks so much for letting me be here today, and we're really glad that you're here in Cleveland County.
Yeah, it's a treat. It's a treat. So I guess the biggest reason why we wanted to come is because of the tremendous transformation and the reinvention of Shelby, which obviously is, spreads out further even into Cleveland County. So I just wanted to chat a few minutes about that on, the overnight success of the reinvention of Shelby.
Sure. Well, Shelby and Cleveland County is going through what I consider a sort of a renaissance of sorts. In terms of Shelby itself, I would say that you could point to the implementation of the North Carolina Main Street program back in 1980, when the transformation became for Uptown Shelby. Mm-hmm. And from that spun off a lot of the other efforts and the other successful things that have occurred throughout Shelby and Cleveland County since that time. But I would pinpoint that, and you mentioned overnight success. It's been 45 years, and I'd say after 45 years, I would consider ourselves as overnight success.
Yeah. Well, sometimes it just takes some time.
It does.
So the biggest thing, though, that I just want you, if you could, outline some of the key efforts that you and the colleagues, because I know with the Main Street program that was obviously a cooperation between not only the city, the county, but state and probably federal efforts, to bring Shelby.
Sure. The Main Street program actually is still going on in Shelby and in North Carolina and a number of other states throughout the country. Mm-hmm. It was, at the time, a partnership between the National Trust for Historic Preservation, the state of North Carolina, the city of Shelby, and a nonprofit was formed called the Uptown Shelby Association, and then other entities were involved as well. But it indeed was a public-private partnership that really has spawned, I think, a really great amount of investment particularly in the Uptown area. Mm-hmm. A lot of buildings that have been renovated. You see a lot of people living uptown now, which you did not see even hardly 20 years ago.
Right.
And now I'd say there's probably over 60 or so apartments uptown. We got our first ones going with Mason Square. It was in the early 80s. It was a pioneer project through the Preservation North Carolina helped with that. And they were like 5, I think, apartments or so at the time in the old Mason Square building. Mm-hmm. And that kicked it off in terms of residential. But we've seen a lot of things happen all over. Now, as you mentioned, the Earl Scruggs Center is on the side of the old courthouse, or is in the old courthouse building, I should say. The Don Gibson Theater took an old vacant movie theater and has turned it into a performing place that draws people from all over sometimes the world. They come to see these performers there, as does the Earl Scruggs Center. People come from all over to see them.
Yeah, because I know there's lots of concerts that go on a regular basis, and it's year-round. It's not just a seasonal thing.
Yeah, Don Gibson has people, performers on an ongoing basis. And, that kind of set the stage for more things to happen. And now you see the development of the Carolina Harmony Trail, which is a rail to trail
The rail
running
trail.
right
Yeah.
through the uptown area.
Share with me about the rail trail.
Well, the the Harmony Trail here in Shelby, it's the idea of a rail to trail was kicked around for quite a number of years, even now in the county and beyond. And finally, about 10, 15 years ago, the city began to look more seriously at that. There's a historic train depot that's along the trail. It has been abandoned. It was basically abandoned for many years by Norfolk Southern, and the city worked with Norfolk Southern and essentially acquired the rights to develop the trail all the way from Sunset Cemetery, which is a really historic cemetery, and all the way down to the South Carolina border. So they're going to be taking it in stages. They've completed one stage just north of Uptown, and it ends in, or it starts in Uptown and then goes north, and then the other part will be completed at some future date.
Yeah,
So,
extended
but
on
there is a
to-
plan, and it's working really well. You know, these it draws a lot of people, and it's going to even have a greater impact once it's completed. But you know, we have now a farmers market uptown. It's a really nice
it's a
farmers
big one.
market.
Yeah.
Again, we started that about 15 or so years ago, 20 years ago. It draws from all over, and it has local vendors. And
With all the farm to table, and this
Yes.
is obviously an agricultural community as well.
Yes.
So,
And you know, that's one thing that we really have begun to take a little bit more advantage of is the agritourism aspect. And there's a Camacho mini farm up in Falston. I mean, kids come from all over the place to see these animals, and
Oh, how
they have
fun.
local products and so forth up there. It's really nice, but a lot of different businesses have begun taking advantage of the agritourism component, the heritage, the agricultural heritage of Cleveland County, and so that gets people even further out into the county, and so we've got some really good opportunity in that respect.
Well, now, if I remember correctly, and you're the historian, so I think I recall that Shelby actually was the capital of North Carolina.
Well, not quite the capital, but
Okay.
however, from the early 1920s up until the 1950s, with the passing of Omax Gardner, who was the governor of North Carolina, Shelby and Cleveland County basically ruled North Carolina politics. It's called the Shelby Dynasty.
Okay.
We
okay.
had Governor Max Gardner, who was the governor during the Depression, was from Shelby. Subsequently after that, it was Clyde R. Huey, who was governor. He went on to become U.S. Senator. We had Judge E.Y. Webb, who was a federal judge. We had, all of the key and important leaders in North Carolina
movers
politics
and the
basically
shakers. Yeah.
focused on Shelby. And so we were a powerhouse in North Carolina politics between the 1920s and 1950s. And that was quite a good thing for us at the time. And we still have the house of Governor Omax Gardner. It's called Webley, and it's in the early stages of being going to be renovated and rehabbed, we hope, very soon.
That's wonderful.
Yeah,
And I know you're a
yeah.
real advocate for
Yeah.
restoration and preservation and that sort of thing.
That's right.
So I'm going to assume, though, that you had you've had your hand on the pulse, so to speak, on ensuring the funding is available and
Yeah.
for these projects,
Well,
these long-term projects.
To the degree that I can, of course, we have had Speaker Tim Moore from Cleveland County, which didn't hurt. And so between us and our other legislative delegation, Kelly Hastings and now Paul Scott, we will have and will continue to help this area. And of course, I cover an area including Lincoln County and part of Gaston County too. So I want to help those areas as much as I possibly can, because there's a real synergy, it seems like, between Cleveland, Lincoln, and Gaston counties.
Sure.
It just seems like it's a natural, cohesive I don't know how to describe it, but there is that union between the three that seems to work really
Right.
well.
So, with that said, you're talking about the three counties, and that brings me to the recent tragedy of Hurricane Helene.
Oh yeah.
And I know that Cleveland County, Lincoln County, and Gaston County are all on the list of impacted counties, but Lincoln County was, well, Cleveland County was really, I guess, hit worse, more so than Lincoln and Gaston.
Well, and it's all kind of relative. Yes, we did have some damage, lots of trees down due to the winds. Of course, power was out for many, many days. People lost food. You know, we did have a very unfortunate death down in Kings Mountain. So we got hit. I would compare it or contrast it, however, to just west in Rutherford County and then beyond, where those people got devastated.
Right.
And I mean, we got maybe a black eye. They lost an arm and a leg. Yeah, they really got hurt. And to the degree, I've always felt that the degree that our counties, Gaston, Lincoln, and Cleveland, could help those others, that got hit much worse out west, I wanted to try to do that. And we did. You saw our counties, even though we got some damage,
Right.
we stepped up and we really helped, in my estimation, those counties further west and north where they had just such deficit. And it's going to take a long
It's
time.
ongoing.
It's going to take a long time for these counties to.
Yeah, it's not anywhere close to
No.
being over.
I mean, you go out in some of those areas, you still see just flooded areas that are just full of silt, and you see the bridges are still out, private bridges particularly.
Right.
The channels of the creeks have moved. Still houses that are just gone, demolished. And then the long-lasting effects, of course, of those people who actually lost lives,
Right.
and the lingering effect that will have for some time, because
Their lives will never be the same.
they'll never, the survivors will never be the same. And I can't help but think, when we have bad weather now, winds, I just wonder, what do the people there think? I mean, I can't imagine what they went through.
Well, they're still traumatized.
Yeah,
So,
I would think so.
so with that, so tell me what's the biggest challenge been as far as, the restoration and making people whole again after Hurricane Helene?
Well, it came in waves, in terms of what was needed and what was important at the time. You had your first couple of weeks where the absolute necessities were important. Food and just having a place
Baby
to stay.
formula, shelter.
Yeah, that kind of thing, and people came through, and it's still coming in, and there's still a need for that. But after the first couple of months, you had to have the stabilization of properties and rebuilding these homes and reintroducing temporary housing is still ongoing issue. I suspect the Samaritan's Purse and the North Carolina Baptist Men and other groups will probably be here, as you said, for several years, because it's going to take that long. When Hurricane Katrina hit down in Louisiana back in 2005, 2005, it was a number of years before the work ceased on rebuilding the houses and things. It's going to be the similar situation here.
It'll be same.
And that was a major. That was another wave of the housing needing building materials. You needed propane and fuel tanks and things like that. And I suspect there will continue to be things that we find out that we need as time goes on. The legislature just passed another really significant law to help fund a lot of the rebuilding over in Western North Carolina. That, along with the federal monies, the FEMA monies, will hopefully take a big chunk out of the estimated $60 billion of damage that was done in western North Carolina. I don't know if we've ever seen such devastation, maybe
Ever.
for any, yeah, especially in North Carolina, maybe
Right.
not in the United States in terms of a natural disaster like that. I don't know that we've ever seen that extent. And $60 billion is an enormous amount.
Yeah, it's unheard of.
It's unfathomable.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So you talking about the state legislature, and tell me about how, I mean, I know, the money is coming down, it's kind of making its way down to individuals and all that, but tell me how that works, because I think a lot of people are not really familiar on how, I mean, you see stuff in the paper, FEMA is nowhere to be found, and there's money, and it's primarily private individuals and private companies, nonprofits that are doing work. But like you said, it's heavy lifting.
Yeah.
So, and I think we're almost to that point now. I mean, I drove across I-40 just last weekend. That was, they've got 2 lanes open, so I saw progress.
It is progressing, and in some respects maybe quicker on the highways 40 than we thought at the time. I mean, had it not been for, as you mentioned, the churches, the volunteer fire departments, local emergency management offices,
Right.
the National Guard. I think DOT stepped up during the initial damage and all of those did a really good job. The local airports from the region
saw that.
did
I
a
saw
tremendous job of carrying in
Doing the
materials,
airdrops of
to places that couldn't be reached otherwise.
Right.
And that in and of itself, I think, is going to be worthy of some kind of book one of these days. That somebody should write a book about those local airports, sending stuff.
And private individuals,
Yes.
again,
Yeah,
doing
came through.
the heavy lifting at
So,
that point.
and the legislature did act very quickly. Within a month, we had passed our first round of funding and so forth, and also doing some regulatory lessening of some of the rules and things to allow people to be able to do their houses quicker and so forth. And that's still ongoing. We have put money toward housing. I've got my cheat sheet. We've got
Yeah,
quite a
please
bit
share.
of.
Yeah,
I mean,
please share.
this has just been signed in by the governor, but we've got like $120 million for home repair and renovation. That'll go through the CDBG program and Department of Commerce, and then $200 million for agricultural relief. I mean, people lost their crops.
Right. All these
Farmlands,
were totally
and
lost.
And it's questionable in some areas as to whether or not the land that's left, can you do farming on it now because of the silt and because of the damage that was done. So
I
that's
hadn't
going to
thought
take
about that.
It's going to take some hard looking at.
Right.
There's $100 million for private roads and bridges. The legislature rarely, if ever,
Right.
puts money toward private roads and bridges because they're private.
Right.
But these folks have to have some help because otherwise you're going to end up with isolated areas where you can't reach them. They can't be reached by EMS. You can't reach them for fire protection, emergencies and things like that. And so we're going to be helping private roads and bridges to be made whole.
I'm sure that in some cases, which this is good to know, that in some cases they did not, some of the homeowners, their insurance would not cover.
Correct.
Their homeowner's insurance
That's
would
correct.
not cover a whole lot of these unusual circumstances.
Well, especially in the form of mudslides.
Right.
Who insures for mudslides? You never think that a wall 10 feet tall and going 60 and 70 miles an hour full of water and debris and you name it is coming right at your house.
Right.
Who thinks of this? Nobody.
Right.
And yet it happened. And it was absolutely just, crushing when it would hit these communities and these areas. We've got, and along that line, there's $55 million set aside for related to small business, but it's for the infrastructure to support small businesses.
Okay, that
now
was
the
one
Small
of my
Business
questions,
Administration
right.
and other groups will have loans, and there's some grants that the Dogwood Trust up in the Asheville area put out, and they're working through some of the local foundations and things like that to help sort of with direct help to businesses. That's always a hard situation to deal with, although I think they're doing a good job trying to help some of these direct assistance to business. And then you've got $20 million to go out to the local municipalities, counties, and so forth for debris removal and sedimentation removal.
Yeah, I drove back from Tennessee, I don't know, a couple of months ago, and I was astounded at the mountains of debris that were just on the side of the road.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, okay, that's great that they were able to consolidate and everything, but who's hauling it off?
That's right.
And
That's right.
where are they hauling it to?
That's right.
So they can go ahead and continue rebuilding their community.
And one other thing is kind of an offshoot of this, but another thing that we're going to find is so many, I don't know how many, must be millions of trees fell and have fallen down in the woods and the forests and so forth. And all of that we're already beginning to see is just going to be tinder for forest fires.
The fires that just
in Polk
started.
County, we had
Right.
some up in Marion about a month ago. We're gonna have to really be on the lookout for fire conditions, because this will really, it's just like
It's
fuel.
Right, it's just a tinderbox.
It is. It's a tinderbox.
Yeah.
And along that line, we've put $10 million toward local fire departments to help them with their either equipment that was damaged or lost and so forth, to help with the
Excellent.
local fire departments
Okay.
up there. And also $10 million to help through what's called the Volunteer Office. Let's see, it's VOAD, Volunteer Organizations Active in Disaster. It's a state come-along organization that helps coordinate volunteers for these kinds of things. And so we put $10 million to help them help nonprofits that have actively and are actively out there working and helping in, hurricane relief.
So is that particular funding and that organization, I'm assuming that they are more or less for a disaster recovery plan for future?
It is both, has been in the past, and it will be in the future, I'm sure. But
Okay.
it's a volunteer arm of emergency management.
Okay,
The state emergency management has a kind of a volunteer, an office of volunteer organization for, what's the name? Active in disaster.
Okay.
I can never remember. VOAD.
Yeah.
VOAD. And they have stepped up, and they're working with other organizations. So they'll be able to help administer this grant to help others, groups that have been helping and need a boost. So they'll help that.
So it sounds like we've checked all the boxes off in the fact
Well-
that we've got, helping to stand up businesses so people can get back to
Right.
work. And then as far as even the agriculture, that's being addressed, and along with disaster recovery.
Well, and another aspect is tourism too. So
Oh, yeah,
the
yeah.
mountains depend heavily on tourism.
That's true.
So right now, there's some towns that aren't ready. We put like $4 million toward tourism development, also to promote those places that are ready. We don't want to promote a town that's still devastated
Well, like
and in
they're
recovery.
still-
There's nothing to come see.
Right.
But at least those places where there's opportunities that are coming back, at least this will help them for the time being. And then I guess we'll probably have to revisit the other areas as time goes on. But this will help those areas that at least have the ability to support tourism at this point in time, because people kind of probably have the mind, oh, Western North Carolina's closed, I can't come. Well, not completely.
Not completely.
Yeah, some areas, sure. But there's a lot more that's probably open now than not. And we want to make sure people know about those areas that are open. So we've been trying to do all we can as a state legislature to make sure that we get people back on their feet. It's the number one priority of the legislature this year and probably next year during this entire biennium.
Well, with the tourism, I mean, okay, there's income there, but it's also a morale boost for the community.
Yes.
You know, that they've got people that are interested and people that want to come and want to see, you know, because it's still a beautiful area.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So that's great that, you know, the state legislature is really keeping an eye on that
yeah.
too.
Hurricane Helene will certainly be top of mind for several years to
years.
come.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
sure will be.
Well, thank you so much for your time. And speaking of tourism and community development and all good things about Cleveland County, I want to encourage folks to have a short run for fun to Cleveland County and visit all the historical sites and the rail trail and
We have a
Ted?
carousel. Who knew that you had a carousel?
a
here?
carousel.
Yeah,
That's
historic
awesome.
carousel. It's at
That's
City
awesome.
Park. Yeah. So there's lots of things to come do.
Lots of things to do.
Yeah,
So
sure is.
thank you for your time.
Of course.
I
Thank you so
appreciate it.
much for allowing us to tell a little bit about what's going on here in this
Yeah.
county and also what's happening as a result of Hurricane Helene in the further west.
Well, it's been a pleasure spending time.
Yeah, sure
Thank you
thing.
so much.
You bet.
All right, with that, have a great day, everyone.